We've got an initial explanation of sorts for this, but it feeds into this perception and reality as well, quite often, that the more money and connections you have, the more likely you'll get back into Australia.
Yeah, in many ways, Tom, that is absolutely correct. Of course, we've seen that with a number of celebrities, especially those coming over to Australia to shoot movies. They go into their own house, perhaps they stay on a yacht off the coast, and it certainly outrages those who are forced to do things by the book. But it appears two of Australia's best cricketers, Adam Zampa, the spin bowler, and Kane Richardson, have managed to find their way back into Australia, and good luck to them. But the Prime Minister is now left explaining how this has happened. It comes, of course, after pressure from the states last week ahead of the National Cabinet meeting, where they urged for tougher restrictions preventing Australians being able to come from India back into Australia. Some 9,000 Australians currently stuck in India with this travel pause, and part of that restriction was these gateway cities, allowing people to transit from India to a third party or a third country and then get on a flight there and come home. Scott Morrison was explaining it on 2GB this morning.
Is this a loophole?
Well, it's one that became apparent to us on Wednesday, and it was closed off at about 7 o'clock Wednesday evening. That flight that the cricketers were on managed to get away just before that. We had information on Monday that wasn't possible. I'm advised there's a 14-day requirement when someone goes into to Doha. But that wasn't being applied to transit passages. Now, that was different from the advice we had on Monday night. That came to our attention. We had it changed on Wednesday night, and we'll be taking some more action there.
Of course, Tom, there are thousands of Australians currently stuck in India with citizenship rights allowed theoretically to get back home if this travel ban wasn't put in place until May 15. Michael Gunner, the Chief Minister for the Northern Territory, has spoken a short while ago. He's made the point that he supports these people being able to come back. He understands the humanitarian need, but this ban needs to stay in place until at least the caseloads come down a little bit.
Right now we have 55 active cases, so we obviously have a big load at the moment, and as the Australian government understands, based off the current caseload and the clinical advice, we can't receive flights from India during May. We obviously recognise the humanitarian need in India. Very happy for those flights to resume once that caseload and clinical advice changes. But at the moment, when you're at 55, that's the reality. It is at 55. We need to keep that deferral until we can get that caseload down.
Jonathan, I'm sure some premiers will want to discuss hotel quarantine, in particular the ideas they're putting forward, not fully formed ones and certainly not fully funded ones either, but they're keen to push this idea of more quarantine facilities beyond Howard Springs. Yeah, that's right, Tom. And I think what's interesting here is that the premiers have made it very clear they want to talk about this topic. But when we get the agenda for National Cabinet today, we're told it's not on the agenda. So let's show viewers what is supposed to be talked about behind closed doors in the meeting. And that includes the vaccine rollout, some 2 million jabs going to Australians now, the high-risk countries, notably India, and that COVID update. But, of course, the most divisive issue, at least amongst the states right now, is what to do with hotel quarantine. Western Australia wants to transition into something run by the federal government out of a military facility, potentially. Victoria wants the federal government to pay for a new facility outside of Melbourne. Queensland would like to look at the Wellcamp option, which is a privately run airport by the Wagner family who've constructed it by themselves. New South Wales, though, is very happy with the way things are.
Oh, I think we can handle that. And we've been handling it, I think, pretty well. It's more of a service delivery arm that I think is probably better looked after by the states. I mean, obviously, with our hotel quarantine program, we're working very closely with health and police. Yep. So I would have thought that would have been more of an issue that the state governments would take ownership of. It seems to be working pretty well to date.
And just finally, Tom, when it comes to that Wellcamp option at Toowoomba outside of Brisbane, I'm told Anastasia Palaszczuk, and this is a quote, doesn't miss an opportunity to raise it in National Cabinet. It'll be very interesting to see what's said at today's press conference with the Prime Minister. Tom? Yeah.